Hi.
Hi.
I'm what? Why do I always say I'm Carly? It's so weird. I'm Prem.
I'm Carly.
And we are going to jam out today about why am I feeling so unheard or misunderstood.
We're doing this at a cafe. This is the first time I've done one of these at a cafe, so that's kind of cool. Hopefully it's not too loud.
Yeah.
We've got food coming and everything. So, are you ready for us to start?
Just give me a moment. I'm going to just do something here.
Yeah.
I'm going to share it with our friends. Yeah, so you're going to hear some beeping. We're on a road. Yeah. Carly's going to be drinking his banana smoothie. So am I. So. Okay. And then yes, done.
Okay. Oh, let's see.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay, so this is, I think, another really common challenge that we come up with is in conflict type scenarios. We really want to be understood, and quite often, if let's say it's a couple of people who have something that they've got charge around, quite often both people end up feeling misunderstood and end up feeling really kind of frustrated that they haven't been heard. And we've talked a little bit around some of these themes if you've watched our last couple of lives, and this has certainly been true for us when we've got into situations that we've thought about. And so we want to kind of explore a little bit of like why does it happen and what might you do about it. So some of the why to start with. So I think one of the key things that contribute to us feeling misunderstood is really to do with our emotions and how we share our emotions with each other and how we relate to our own emotions. And we've talked quite a bit previously about where quite often it's actually not so useful to share like lots of our emotional content with others. Of course, our emotions are really important though, and it's really important that we do be in relationship with our own emotions and share emotions with each other so we get to be known, you know. And so there is for sure important territory around sharing our emotions.
And our emotions give us a really good hint as to what it is that we're needing. We've done some good videos on that actually. If you go to Triibe at YouTube, you'll see we've got some videos on emotions and needs and how they can indicate what it is that we need. So we totally advocate for people having connection with their emotion, also sharing some of the content of what their emotion is, and to increase your vocabulary, your language skills around being able to understand the full array of distinctions around emotions. However, sharing all of the content and all of the meaning making, we have said in our previous videos, from our research and our own experience, it's not as useful as sharing more concisely what we've been feeling and thinking, and then moving into a feed forward, requesting what it is that we want. So that's a little bit of a summary of where we've been.
Yes, yeah. But the thing I kind of want to really kind of hone into is that experience that I think a lot of us have had where, like, I felt really hurt about something, you know, or I've just, you know, there's like a real deep kind of core feeling that's come up, and so it might be hurt, or it might be some kind of sense of loneliness, or something that I really struggle with, you know, like it might have brought up some stuff that I've struggled with my whole life, you know, as an early child. Maybe it's something I got really angry about and I wasn't really seen, you know, and kind of acknowledged for and supported to kind of have autonomy around, if it's anger or whatever it might be. And those places where we get into that kind of place where it's really vulnerable for us, and there's this really core content, and we want to be kind of held in the vulnerability of it, by the people that love us, and that spot can be really really hard. I've certainly felt that, where there's this real core kind of vulnerability, this core wounding that I felt, and I've wanted to be just like seen, like, hey, this is really painful for me, this is really hard for me, and
I've really failed at it.
and it can be, and that's the spot that I think we often really want to be understood. We want to be kind of loved in those spots. But at the same time, it's also the place that we, can be hard for us to actually relate in a mature kind of way, right? Because it's the stuff that we're triggered by and we kind of get wounded into.
And we've lost context because we're now experiencing a flashback from past that is now occurring as the truth of this moment. And I love the expression, when you're hysterical, you can pretty well guess it's historical. And so, if your reaction to something is somewhat disproportionate, and check in with other people if you're unsure what disproportionate means in any given context. But if your reaction is disproportionate, it's likely that you're really, actually there's deeper roots in your past history that have this just feel so much more. Have it feel like it matters more, have it feel like there's even more of an emergency, have it feel like that if this person doesn't understand you, it's even more painful, and you quite likely are unlikely to know that that's where you are, that your brain is holding a perspective that actually has a lot of data that's not from this particular context. So we lose context, and so we're far less likely to relate from a place of maturity. We just can't. Our prefrontal cortex is less engaged at that point.
So if we're in a pairwise relational situation and both people are in that spot, well,
that's time to pause.
That's time to pause, and it's that's the spot where I think both people end up feeling really, really misunderstood.
Yeah.
So if we're in that spot, what do you do about it? How do you kind of tackle these cycles where we both end up just kind of wanting to be held and wanting to be loved and wanting to express these kind of deep core desires and needs, and both people end up kind of feeling that way, and you end up in this kind of dual withdrawal situations where both people end up kind of withdrawing, just feeling like hurt and feeling like they've been misunderstood, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I think the first thing is to notice it, like you were just pointing to, right? That kind of, if I am being overridden in a sense by some kind of core wounding and some pain, and it's flooding me, if that emotion is like taking me out.
If my reaction's disproportionate.
If my reaction is disproportionate, and the dog is trying to get my food, and my prefrontal cortex is going offline, well, of course, that's not going to be a good time to actually try and communicate, our feelings and our needs to somebody else.
Don't do it then.
So, and I think this is a really massive piece in relating, is our ability to actually call timeouts and to pause so that we can actually...
Oh my gosh, big time.
Regulate ourselves, and take time to make sense of what's going on for us, and I think, I really encourage everyone to call timeouts. If it looks like things are going to start spinning out of control, call a timeout. And sometimes it can be really hard to call a timeout because the other person really has a lot of emotional energy and really wants to kind of be heard and stay in.
Or you think that you're not as triggered as you are. That's actually why a lot of people don't call timeouts. I would say that's the majority of the time. Is even if somebody is in a lot of emotion, the issue is not that they're in a lot of emotion. It's that I cannot be with it.
Yeah.
That's the key, right? We said this in our first Facebook Live when we were talking about conflict, about when we discuss what is it when somebody's being called intense. It's actually that it's fine for somebody to be in a lot of emotion. Have at it. And it's just not going to be fine if I'm not going to be able to be there, have my appropriate level of boundaries such that I'm able to be there with attunement and care, whilst also maintaining my sense of reality, whilst being able to hear it as their reality, all those kinds of things. So if I'm not able to do that, that's when I need to call a timeout. And I think people don't have generally particularly good boundaries in their thinking and their emotions, and they don't know the distinction of, when you're angry, I don't have to be angry. But if I'm starting to get angry because you're angry, I'm actually having a boundary failure.
Yeah.
Or when you're saying things in a particular way and I'm not able to hear them as that is your reality, that's how it occurred for you, and I'm starting to hear it as you're telling me this is the truth about me, or even if you are saying it's the truth about me and I'm letting it in as if it is, and now I'm reacting to it, I'm now having another boundary failure, which is a boundary failure around my sense making. So then that's going to trigger me, right? So when that triggers me, then I get dysregulated, and therefore I should be calling a timeout, not to control and manage you, but because of me. Yeah, so I think a key thing here is that people don't call timeouts because they don't actually realize I am not triggered, because we don't really have a very good model of how we should be with people when we're not triggered, and they are.
Yep. Yeah, and it's, we actually, I think, get triggered a lot more easily than we realize, and quite often we're mildly triggered and actually need to call
all the time.
actually need to call a timeout, from that little bit of activation, and don't kind of realize it. So kind of calibrating our thresholds there and realizing, hang on, I am in a bit of activation, and maybe in the past I wouldn't have called that activation, but it is there a little bit. So normally we need to call a timeout actually when there's a little bit of activation there, rather than letting it kind of get to places that then have relating start to be kind of destructive.
Spiral.
So
let's do a whole Facebook Live on timeouts, because I think that it warrants that.
Yes.
We'll do that. Maybe the next one will be on how to do a healthy, respectful timeout.
Yeah, good call. So that's like really, really key. Being able to do a timeout, go and regulate yourself, go and do some journaling, regulation, of course, just breathing is a really great starting point there. Relax yourself, journaling to make sense of what's actually really, really going on for you. So once you've actually been able to do that, well then how do I actually then set up an interaction where I can create understanding, and kind of where I have this deep wounding and maybe the other person does, or whatever it is, these parts inside of me that want to be seen and understood, and how do I kind of go about creating that shared understanding that can occur? Well, one of the starting, I think, really counterintuitive moves to do here. Hey bud, we're in the middle of recording a video, so now's not a good time to chat.
Yeah, sorry.
So
Can I ask you one question?
Not right now, sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So one of the counterintuitive moves to do is to actually listen first, to actually give the very thing that I'm wanting, right? So this is kind of the whole 7 habits move of seek first to understand before being understood. So a lot of the time why somebody can't actually give me the understanding that I want is because they're in their own world of loud thoughts and feelings. So if the other person is going to be able to kind of give me the listening and the understanding that I want, if I give it first, it's generally going to help diffuse some of that kind of the intensity that's on the inside of them. So if I first create a lot of space to receive their reality, to kind of let them maybe express some of their emotions to the degree that I feel available for it, that's going to help kind of release some of the charge that's in their system. Essentially, it'll help regulate that person, and it'll have them feel like, yes, I have been understood, and now I feel the inner space to actually then be able to give that kind of same thing in return, and give you that kind of understanding in return.
It's interesting because to come to that place to allow that type of opening to happen means that, let's say I've got something to talk about that I want to get addressed, it means that I have to start with curiosity, which might not have been on my menu of things that I was going to say. So it means including it at the beginning of your menu, which is, for example, hey, you know when blah blah happened yesterday, I'm curious what was happening for you. Or, hey, I found that conversation really hard yesterday. How did you feel? So that's like tends not to be where we want to start, because we want to start with our assumptions must be correct about the context of what happened, or I want to get heard, or whatever it is that's going on with us. But what you're actually talking about, Carly, is you're talking about offering curiosity and an openness to listen, right? Before I'm going to lead with all the things that I want to share. And the interesting thing is if you do that, you might actually end up with information that you didn't have that may actually shift some of your orientation too. So it's quite a good move to gather more information, and it also it deepens the rapport, right? So if you're somebody who tends to lead with sharing what your reality is and then requests, we're recommending try something different. Try leading with, hey, how did you find blah blah? Or, you know, this thing I heard, like this thing happened, and I'm wondering what had you make that decision? And by offering that spaciousness, we're offering to seek first to understand somebody before we're trying to be understood. And the research indicates that actually can create a whole lot more understanding than for both of us, if I can lead with what it is that I'm wanting.
Yeah. So of course, like we were just saying, I need to be regulated enough to do that, particularly if it's kind of content that's going to have a lot of charge in it. And, if I've got a part of me inside that really wants to be understood, I've got to like hold that part and kind of contain it enough, you know, that I can create enough space to be able to receive the other person's reality.
Yes.
And if it's a reality that is quite different to mine, the challenging but like amazing move is to be able to hear it while not necessarily agreeing with it. And that's the really challenging piece, I think, here, you know, of kind of to realize that understanding doesn't equal agreement.
I want to say that again.
It's massive.
Understanding, I wanted to call the Facebook Live that. Understanding does not equal agreement. And so that happens on both sides. So when you're going into a conversation and you want to be understood, that doesn't mean that the other person needs to express that they agree with you. And as a listener, when somebody's sharing their reality with you, you don't need to agree. It doesn't actually matter whether, by agreement, what I mean is that you experience it in the same way. I'm in full support of you agreeing that it was this way for them. Agree with that, because it was that way for them, right? Like, you start disagreeing that it was not that way for them, and you start to violate their reality. So believe them. Believe it was like that for them, and then be impacted by that. Like, you know, so for example, if Carly says to me, wow, babe, you know, right now I feel really overwhelmed by how quickly you're moving, and I need things to slow down. Now, I might just be doing me as normal me. Like
it's not quick moving for you.
It's not quick moving for me. And hang on a minute, I'm not trying to hurt you, or, you know, let's say he says it with some charge too, right? Babe, could you just slow down? Like, this is a lot. You're moving really fast. It is in my best interest to believe him, not believe him that that's the truth about me. Might be. But that he experiences me that way is true for him. And it's in my best interest to believe him. And so the move there is, okay, thanks for letting me know. What do we do now? That's a yin move. It's a water move. And it's a move where I don't actually need to agree that his reality is mine. But what I am in agreement with is that I want this to feel a particular way. I want him to be having an experience that works for him as much as it works for me. And therefore, if he's sharing with me that something doesn't work, this is where I say to people, or say to my couples, I said this in another Facebook Live, you can either be right or you can be married. So I could either be right, I could go into righteousness and say, babe, you're actually just moving really slowly. Like, come on, you know, or far out. Like, what do you mean I'm moving fast? Like, my God, I've been waiting for us to do this for so long. Like, stop killing my buzz, you know? I could be right, or I could be connected. That's another way of saying it. You could be right, or you could be connected. And if I want to be connected, it's in my best interest to understand and believe. So that's a really key thing where a lot of people get stuck, is that going into the conversation, they want the other person to understand to the degree that the other person agrees that it is actually what happened for them too. And that is so, so dangerous. But if I can agree that that is really what happened for him and add care to that, that matters to me, that's a whole different playing field.
Yeah. But look, the thing that I want to keep emphasizing here is internally the sophistication we need to develop to be able to do this. Because if I've said that thing to you and you're not going to be like triggered by it, you know, and start to, technical term here, introject, like take on the thing that I said as if it was true, you need to be able to kind of keep it over there to some degree and say, okay, Carly saying I'm moving too fast is about Carly, it's not about me, you know, and I need to be able to kind of hold on to my own reality too. In my reality, I'm not going fast, you know, and this is just, so there's this funny paradox. To stay connected, we have to kind of be able to keep some sense of separateness, you know. I'm actually maintaining my separateness, which is boundaries, right, to be able to actually then kind of see you and see that this, you're having an experience that would have you saying this thing about me right now,
yes.
You know. And so this, you know, this is where it's so important to be in the practice of kind of self-awareness, you know, and quite often what makes these types of things really challenging is that on the inside it all happens really, really fast, you know.
Yeah.
I hear the thing and then I have a feeling, you know. So actually when we kind of in reflection go, oh well, he said that thing and I had that feeling and it was all really confusing, and then I reacted and whatever it is, said something hurtful and stormed off or whatever it is, you know, that I take the time to properly journal and kind of digest that stuff, because it's only through those types of reflective practices that we start to actually develop the self-awareness to be able to then get to the place where we can kind of have that healthy separateness, so that we can actually maintain that sense of connectedness with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is like a really key part of what we teach, you know, is kind of developing these types of skills and developing good boundaries and so on.
I think actually we can actually afford to meet people a lot more than what we think we can. I think that we can give up some of our territory more than I think we can. So I think a nice distinction is so if this person's having a reality and they have hopefully a request to back it up with, then, or you ask them, well, like, what would be better here? To really check, like, would I actually have to give up a fundamental part of who I am to make this work for this person right now? And I think so many of us can have such an orientation to righteousness and owning our own territories, and not knowing how to be collaborative, that we think that we can give up a lot less. We think we can give up a lot less than we can. And relationship is actually about giving up territory a lot, actually. Not territory that is fundamental to my identity. Not territory like, let's say Carly said to me, you know what, Prem, I don't like how much time you spend with your clients, and I don't really like you teaching. Has me feel insecure, and I want you to be a stay-at-home mum, and I don't want you to do those things. Has me feel insecure and lonely. I would have to truly sit with that and come up with some kind of a counter offer that isn't that, because those things are actually fundamental to my identity, right? They turn me on and inspire me beyond like most things. And so actually that's fundamental to who I am. But if he's to say to me, in this moment, feels like you're going really fast and I feel really overwhelmed, it is in my best interest and his for me to go, do you know what? I could probably just slow down here. Or if he says to me, you know what, like how you speak to your ex-partner has me feel really insecure. The truth is am I really losing something by actually tightening up and having more tidiness with the way I speak to somebody who's an ex-partner of mine? Like, does it really change the core of my identity to give that up? Yes, it might mean loss. Yes, it might mean giving up things that matter to me. But like, that relationship is actually a giving up of ground. That is what it is, but not the core of who we are.
Well, this has actually been a really massive one for me, because I would hear these types of requests, and what I would hear is some version of, like, you're doing it wrong, right? And this is to do with a lot of my core learning. And so the request I would kind of interpret as kind of judgments of me somehow, you know? So, like, learning how to actually get clear on, like, what am I actually being asked of here? You know, like, you know, if you're like, hey, would you speak differently to your partner? And I
To your ex-partner.
To your ex-partner, and I get curious about that. And like, okay, well, what does that look like to you? Can you give me some examples of, you know, how I might speak differently? And the examples might be like, you know, just, can you not use the word honey or whatever it is, you know? And just kind of, and maybe just kind of have a bit more distance. Can you not kiss on the lips? This is actually a real one, right? And if I sit with actually concretely, what am I being asked to do, then I can get a lot clearer on, oh, hang on, that's actually not that big a deal ultimately, you know. I'm not really having to give up, you know, a huge amount there, you know. And I just, for me, kind of learning to do that, to get into the specifics of like what would it actually look like, was like really made a big difference, you know. And
to me too.
and to like realize that there's those parts of me that kind of basically have bad boundaries and like internalize
have what? Bad boundaries.
And internalize, like, hear that kind of I'm doing it wrong type thing, you know, and actually be able to go hold that part of me and say, hey, you know, actually, you're doing fine.
You're doing fine. And if it was another woman, she may not need this. But this has her feel insecure, and therefore, well, or, you know, it's not in her value system, and therefore, what's more important to me?
Yeah. So, kind of coming back to this large theme, right? Of like, well, how do you create, you know, shared understanding in relationship? And what do you do if you're feeling misunderstood? So, this piece of just like being regulated, actually giving understanding first, you know, and then once the other person... Offering understanding. Once the other person feels like they've been understood, they're going to just be a lot more available to kind of go into giving that shared understanding. So this is probably, I think, the primary thing we wanted to talk about today.
And that understanding doesn't equal agreement.
And understanding doesn't equal agreement, exactly, you know, and that one is like super, super massive, because like we so easily conflate that one, right? You know, if
it's super massive.
I'm like listening to you, and I'm hearing all the things that I disagree with, and then I kind of jump at you, like, that's not true, you know, like we've certainly been in a lot of that type of situation, because I'm, you know, assuming that somehow I'm giving up part of myself just by giving you that understanding. I'm agreeing to what you're saying just by giving you that understanding. If I can separate those two, then I can actually properly understand you and still keep my own reality intact, you know. So this piece is, I think, so massive. So massive.
And like I micro coach my couples on this a lot. It's a key area where they can really make massive changes, where she might have a complaint, and instead of him going, you know, whatever it would be the reaction, I coach people to just lean straight in. Oh, honey, I'm sorry you're having that experience with me. Yeah. Okay. What could we do differently here? Or, oh, honey, I'm so sorry you're having that experience. It sounds really shit. It sounds really painful. That makes sense to me. What should we do?
And that doesn't mean I'm agreeing to the judgments that she's made of me being an asshole or whatever it is, you know.
She's just not having a good experience, and that matters to me, and I do care. And let's see what other options we've got here.
Yes.
You know, why not?
Yeah.
So, if you do that though, and the person is still wanting to stay inside of the loop of their anger, so we talked about this in the first Facebook Live, which was a couple of days ago, Thursday. I recommend listening to that if you haven't, because this is where the conversation around selling past the point of a sale happens. When somebody goes, okay, yes, I'm really sorry for that. How can we do something different moving forwards? Or how could I help you have a different experience? That's a really nice sentence. How could I help you have a different experience here? Okay. If you're the sharer, now it's on you to shift your internal state, to shift your internal embodiment. And this is where a lot of people fall down, because the person who was expressing hasn't taken it in that the other person is now with them and they're ready to move forward. And this is where, if that person can't move yet with the offer and they want to stay inside of what we referred to in that Thursday Facebook Live, which was expressing mode, and they need to continue inside of the expressing mode, it can be a time to possibly pause, because that person's not ready yet they're wanting something from you that may or may not be available. So, and that no one's actually entitled to that. We're not entitled to having as long as we want with somebody to empty out all the stuff that we felt because of XYZ.
I've given that understanding type attention, but the person still doesn't feel understood, because there's so much kind of whatever it is, angst triggering in there, so
yeah,
it's at some point, it's okay, I don't have...
Hold a boundary.
I'm not available to keep giving you this type of attention.
Yeah, I love you. I can see you're really still in a lot of pain. When you're ready, I'd love to talk about how we move forward from here. That is a really healthy way to engage with somebody. It is not unsensitive. If you are genuine in your heart that you want to move forward in a way that doesn't impact this person in the same way, honestly, that is all that you're responsible for in a relationship. If you can offer, and you do offer more than that, great. We're not suggesting don't do that, but I am suggesting that is not a flat given in relationships. Okay.
A dog just went to attack another dog.
So, food. You never really want food involved too much. Hang on a seckie. There we go. Cool. Well, I actually think that we've probably come to a pretty nice spot for closing, really.
Yeah. This is the last bookmark I want to make, really, to talk about another time, is just how to establish a sense of we're in this together, and this I think is just another really important thing. How do we, create that sense of shared purpose, mutual respect, because that's, I think, another place that it can be hard to come into that place of creating a sense of understanding, is when I'm we get into this spot of I don't trust you, and I don't believe you, so that's where it can just be really hard to come back into that sense of connection, where there's that underlying hurt that's created that sense of disconnection. So
yeah,
big bookmark there.
Well, in terms of the shared purpose piece, that's if you come on Saturday, you will be hearing that. We will be going more into that and how that looks like. You create that with somebody else to open out into a really healthful, prosperous conversation. So on that note, I will mention we do have a workshop happening this Saturday at our beautiful Riverside home, and it is a one-day workshop, and we will gear you up with lots of new capacities. You'll have a practice opportunity to bring a previous conflict, or one that you're currently in, or one that you want to look at, face, and workshop it in a really safe way. Our workshops are really fun, by the way. We laugh a lot. There's a lot of connection. We share a lot of our own stuff in a well-boundaried way, I would like to think. But, we're not experts telling you how to do something. We're in it with you, where we get it. I've laughed about this a few times. I think we've got a PhD in resolving or turning conflict around to create more connection, and we want to share that with you. So if you want to come as a couple, there's a special couples price. We'd love to have you. So Thanks for watching. If you won't be with us on Saturday, we'll be doing a couple more Facebook Lives before Saturday. And yeah, good luck with resolving the challenges such that they bring you closer together with the people you love and you're able to be more of who you really are in your relationships.
Great. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.
Bye.